Welcome to Horse Bytes, your go-to source for keeping up with the show jumping world. Perhaps the biggest news of the week comes out of Wellington, where the town council finally approved the establishment of the new showgrounds adjacent to the existing Wellington International facility. It was a hugely debated issue with passionate discussions on both sides of the argument, but the land use swap and altering of the equestrian preserve borders has been approved and will move forward with development. Henrik von Eckermann continues to top the Longines World Rankings as the first list of the year was published, and it's a new dawn of team show jumping as the Longines League of Nations debuted last week in Abu Dhabi. We saw thrilling competition as the teams battled it out for over 700,000 euros in prize money. Wellington saw its first 5-star of the season, and the Sunshine Tour saw competition ramp up for its first 4-star. This week, we're going to take a look at the winningest riders from last year and see who is on form already this year, as well as take a dive into the controversial topic of shoes versus barefoot, where we will hear some expert opinions on the matter. But first, let's take a look at this past week's big winners. Well, the inaugural Longines League of Nations finally took place in CSIO 5-star Abu Dhabi and saw nail-biting competition that came down to the very last ride, where Ireland almost clinched the win after coming in as the favorite, but had to settle for second after Germany finished on a total team score of 8 for the win. German chef to keep Otto Becker said after the competition that it was a super start to the Olympic season and he was looking forward to the remainder of the series. It was the luck of the Irish as Dara Kenny in Amsterdam took a spectacular win over fellow countrymen Cian O'Connor and Jordan Coyle for the first 5-star win in Wellington, and Vaher saw Scott Brash take the win in the first 4-star of the season at the Sunshine Tour. All right, and our pick for round of the week is Amsterdam and Dara Kenny from Wellington in the 5-star. Look at this, they did 7 up the first line, everyone else did 8. It was an unbelievable round and a really emotional win for Dara. Of course, it was his first 5-star under the lights win in Florida and the first class that Amsterdam had really jumped at this level since the Tokyo Olympics. Jumped through this double in the first round, struggled a little bit at C there, fixed it, jumped huge out. Look at this super tight rollback to the vertical, and then he lands and just gallops. Look at this long run to the last. Unbelievable round, and he took the win over Cian O'Connor and Jordan Coyle. Welcome to Showstopper, powered by EquiRatings. Make sure to check out Showstopper Stories to get a full rundown of the Longines League of Nations. But this week, we're going to cover the top winning riders from last season and see who is on track to win again. In 2023, 13 riders won at least 3 Grand Prix at the 4- and 5-star level. But Emmanuel Gaudiano and Julien Epayard shared the top spot with 6 wins each. Emmanuel took 2 of his wins at CSI 5-star competitions in the UAE, taking the World Cup in Sharjah and the Grand Prix class at the Nations Cup in Abu Dhabi, while 5 of Julien's 6 wins last year came from the CSI 5-star shows, including a win in the World Cup class of Amsterdam. His biggest win in terms of ELO field strength was his win in the Global Champions Super Grand Prix in Prague. And Julien is underway again in 2024 with another CSI 5-star win at Amsterdam 2 weeks ago, this time in the Grand Prix. Other than world number 1 Henrik von Eckermann, who competed in 38 4- and 5-star competitions last year, it's valuable to note that Gaudiano and Epayard both took part in significantly more competitions than their fellow competitors, with 34 competitions and 35 respectively. It's also interesting to point out that although both Gaudiano and Epayard won more classes, their win rate was slightly lower than third-place finisher on the list, Kent Farrington. Kent had a win rate of 18.5%, while the other 2 were below in the 17% range. Although von Eckermann competed in the most classes, his win rate was significantly lower at only 7.8%, and most interestingly, Carl Cook, who sits 10th on the list, had a super high win rate of 37.5%, but with his low participation with only 8 appearances, this statistic is slightly less significant. It's a big year coming up for the upper echelon of show jumpers, and with Julien Epayard already picking up a win, I think he has a strong chance to remain atop the altar. Stay tuned to Showstopper each week to get insight and analysis on your favorite horses and riders. Also, don't miss Showstopper Stories on Wednesdays for a complete analysis of the past week's winners. Horse Bytes, presented by Karina Brez Jewelry. Welcome back to Weekly Wonder, our deep dive into industry secrets and the topics you want to know most about. A hotly debated and controversial topic of late is the discussion surrounding show jumpers going barefoot, meaning they never wear horseshoes. It's certainly a fascinating move, but the #1 ELO-rated horse in the world, King Edward, is barefoot. Rolex Grand Prix of Geneva winner United Touch went shoeless a few years back to help shorten his stride and help bring his hind end more underneath him. Most of Julian Bayard's horses have never worn shoes. Carl Cook's Caracol de la Roque is barefoot, and many others. It's a trend that took off a few years back and has been gaining traction across the sport. Is it a fad, or it will become the norm as popularity grows? To give you a little background, horseshoeing has been around since 400 BC, where ancient Romans used something called hippo sandals to protect their horses' feet, and ancient Asians were known to even use woven plants. So horseshoeing is nothing new, and farriers, blacksmiths who also shoe horses, to be clear, have been tending to horses' feet for centuries. Horseshoes are said to protect the horse's feet, increase speed, add durability on rough terrain, and provide therapeutic relief to medical issues. Nowadays, we see all different types of materials being used, from traditional steel to aluminum, plastic, rubber, glue-on shoes, clip-on shoes, hot shoeing and cold shoeing, and more. It is an art that has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of years, but recently we are starting to see a shift away from the traditional, and here to speak about its merits and potential pitfalls is world-class farrier Pascal Ebel and Pan-American team gold medalist, American rider Carl Cook. Thanks, Pascal, for joining us. I'm very excited to have you here today. So first question up is, tell us some of the basics of horseshoeing and why it is still common practice in the sport today.
So there's mainly 3 reasons why we shoe these days. That's excessive wear, so protection of the foot, traction if you ride on grass, you want to put studs in, and correction if the horse is going bad in a certain way.
So why do you think that someone would choose to pull the shoes off?
So normally you try to trim every 4 weeks because you want the coffin bone as close to the ground as possible. Because the further the coffin bone is from the ground, the more reaction forces are getting on the tendons and the ligaments and the joints. So by adding a shoe, you actually add 4 weeks to the foot, because the shoe is 8 millimeters, and that's about what it grows every 4 weeks. So
Interesting.
That's the reason to pull the shoes. And then with the shoes, people are adding pads because they have to jump every week. So then we put pads. So then again, you add like 4 or 5 millimeters. So then you have 8 millimeters plus the pad. Then you're already on 12 millimeters. So you add length to the foot. So if you take everything away, your coffin bone is closer to the ground. So there's less stress on the foot.
Interesting. So what do you think some of the major risks are with pulling the shoes, and are those risks worth it?
What I see is that from every 10 horses that you pull the shoes off, that 2 are really happy and 8 go back on shoes.
I think anytime that a horse has to go back on grass, you see people who have barefoot horses still putting shoes on in order to be able to put studs in. So that is, I would imagine horses struggle with that.
Well, no, because these farriers know what they're doing. I mean, this is high-end sports, so everybody knows their horses. Then you can use like really Shetland pony nails. You put the shoes on for 1 or 2 days and you take them off again. And what you see now is a new technique with a certain shoe that you make a scan of the foot. Then 2 days later, they send you the shoes. You put the shoes on. They're from plastic, and they're really light. So the horse doesn't really has the idea that he has shoes on. Is the idea.
Okay. In general, like, do you think barefoot horses should just be au naturel, or do you think the shoes really do serve a purpose for the majority of horses?
Well, that last thing is the thing. It is a lot of work to have them without shoes. That's one thing. Is it better? Yes. Every book of horseshoeing starts with that a horseshoe is a necessary evil. If you don't need it for that protection, or so forth, if you don't need it for the excessive wear, for the correction or traction, it's better to leave without shoes.
All right, last thing. Is this something for, because of all the maintenance on it, is this really something to keep the horses barefoot for your average horse person that they should consider it? Or, what does, should cost be a factor? Should, the maintenance on it be a factor? Or you think the average horse person could manage it if they had the time and the know-how?
So in the end, for me, for sure, there's horses that are better off without shoes. But then for the average horse owner, I think it's difficult unless you have great quality feet.
And now some thoughts from top show jumper Carl Cook. You mentioned it is complicated having a barefoot horse. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
We have a circle around our barn that's a gravel over asphalt, and we put in rubber mats for her. She has travel boots when she goes in the trailer. She has boots that go over her feet when she goes to the ring and back from the ring. She gets shod or trimmed, major trimming every 2 weeks, but there's minor adjustments along the way. That's a logistical challenge. With her, I look at all of her feet every single day, and I almost think I go cross-eyed because I'm trying to look at the balance. I'm trying to look at, is the heel long enough, or the toe, or you're
an obsessive nature to it.
Yeah, because any detail that you miss has more consequences. Not every horse can be barefoot.
Okay.
I would love to have every horse barefoot, but it's impossible.
From a time standpoint, or just because they're not all candidates for it?
Not all candidates. You'll make more horses lame insisting on everyone being barefoot than you'll make them better.
The one thing that you always hear all the time is when you pull a horse's shoes, it shortens their stride and pulls scope out of them. Obviously, you got Caracol already without shoes, and I had a conversation with Richard Vogel, and he mentioned with United Touch, he pulled the shoes intentionally to shorten the stride because his horse's stride was too big. Do you think that is something that plays a role with pulling shoes and people should be wary of, does it shorten the stride? Does it take away scope?
I think the scope is not for every horse. I think the shortening of the stride is significantly more common.
Okay, interesting. Well, this was fascinating. You have anything else you want to add about the sort of shoe, no shoe debate?
You need everyone on your team to be aware of it, to prepare for it before you do it, and to prepare for the ramifications, to understand how to see as soon as possible if it's working or if it's not working. And I think people correlate. They say, look at these top horses and how many of them are now barefoot. And they say, oh, well, then if it's the same ratio for every horse, it'll help all of them. But the correlation is not causation. And it's a process. And it always will be. Even if it's successful and a good idea, it'll always be a process.
Well, such a fascinating topic, and now I feel like we've all received an education on the shoe, no shoe debate. Time will tell how this trend continues, but for now, would you remove your horse's shoes and try out the natural approach? Not sure I'd be brave enough to, but it's certainly something to entertain. But first, it's time to take a look at the wild things of the week. All right, let's take a look at the wild things this week. And this happened in Ocala, and the judges actually counted it at first. And then in the end, they came back. The rule is you got to stay within the flags. Controversial there over the weekend, but certainly not counting if you see it from this angle. All right, this one, oh man, being naughty before. Oh my God, that's gotta hurt. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. I'm not a guy, but that's gotta leave a mark. Oh, and look at this. It's like a childhood dream. You want your horse in your house. Going to take a look in the bathroom. Oh, kid laughing in the background.
badge for?
She can't stop laughing. Look, he's checking himself out. It's a dream until it's actually happening. But those were your wild things of the week.
If these bloopers made you chuckle, be sure to hit the subscribe buttons for more. And if you have one you'd like to share, please send it along and get an opportunity to be featured on the show. That's a wrap on this week's Top Highlights. Next week, we will cover some of the most exceptional seasons horses and riders have had over the past 15 years, as well as give you some tips for handling the mental game of riding horses. And remember to meet us here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central European Time, noon Eastern Standard, and stay tuned wherever you get your socials for constant updates and clips from our show. Drop your comments below, and we'll be sure to answer as many as we can. And follow along all the action as it unfolds here on Horse Bytes, your go-to source for keeping up with the show jumping world. Hey guys, Flying Feathers here. Follow us wherever you get your socials and be a part of the Horse Bytes community.